It has been a week since the political drama started in Maharashtra, and the only thing that's clear so far is that the Uddhav Thackeray government is in a minority, given that at least 40 of Sena's 55 MLAs are camping with Eknath Shinde in Guwahati. So why are the rebels not pushing it? One letter from them to the governor, and the MVA government will have to seek a trust vote in the assembly. So what is the Shinde camp, as also the BJP, waiting for? Also, the rebel camp now calls itself Shiv Sena Bala Saheb. They suggest that they, not the Thackeray, Uddhav Thackeray led party, represents Bal Thackeray's ideological and political legacy. So why is Shinde not approaching the election commission to claim the party symbol? In this episode of Politically Correct, I will try to explain why. But before that, let me start on a lighter note. Uddhav Thackeray tells rebels, don't use my father's name, use your own father's name to win elections. That reminds me of Amitabh Bachchan Shashi Kapoor's famous exchange in the war film. This is how Eknath Shinde, who has the BJP's backing, would probably say today. मेरे पास बंगला है, गाड़ी है, बैंक बैलेंस है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? And Uddhav Thackeray would say, मेरे पास बाप है. Anyway, coming to the questions I raised, what is holding back the BJP and Eknath Shinde today? Why aren't they pushing to bring MVA government down now that they have enough numbers on their side? Even with over 2/3 of the party MLAs backing him, Shinde seems to be circumspect, because even after the backing of 40 MLAs, he is far from achieving his goal. He probably thought, the 2/3 of the MLAs would be recognized as a separate group in the assembly, which could then support the BJP to form the government. Shinde should have read the 10th schedule of the constitution, which deals with the anti-defection law. He should have read that more carefully. Having 2/3 of the MLAs does not necessarily enable his group to be recognized as a separate group in the assembly. They must merge with another political party to avoid disqualification. We may think, so what is the problem? They can merge with the BJP. But it's not that simple, it's a bit complex. How could self-proclaimed flag bearers of Bal Thackeray's ideological and political legacy let the BJP appropriate that legacy? After all, they project their rebellion as a rightist movement to reclaim Bala Saheb's ideology of Hindutva, which Uddhav purportedly compromised by allying with the Congress and the NCP. If they merge with the BJP, this group, they lose the moral high ground, their Sena identity, and the support of the Sainiks. Once they are out of the Sena and part of the BJP, their bargaining power also gets diluted. And that's why they seem to be keeping the option of merging with the BJP aside, for the time being at least. The second option for the rebel group is to merge with Raj Thackeray's MNS, Maharashtra Navnirman Sena. Incidentally, in the recently released Marathi film, Dharamveer, that's a biopic on Eknath Shinde's mentor and Shiv Sena leader Anand Dighe. In that movie, there is a scene in which Anand Dighe is telling Raj Thackeray, now it's your responsibility to take Hindutva forward. Now, I have not seen that movie. This is courtesy my colleague in Mumbai, Purva Chitnis. So, that character is saying it's your responsibility to take Hindutva forward. But it's not so easy for Eknath Shinde in real life. Shinde is an ambitious man, although Uddhav Thackeray had sought to mollify him by making him urban development minister and legislature party leader. Shinde has, still decided to get out of Uddhav's shadow to realize bigger ambitions that he has. Why would he then choose to get under Raj Thackeray's shadow? In their leadership styles, Raj is much more domineering and aggressive than Uddhav Thackeray. Even the BJP has not shown much enthusiasm about embracing Raj Thackeray all these years. So why would Shinde go there? In politics, everything is possible, but just a question. There is another option, that is being floated in Maharashtra political circles, and that is that, that Shinde group can merge with this party called Prahar Janshakti Party, PJP, of independent MLA Bachu Kadu. He is another minister who is standing beside Shinde in Guwahati. The problem with this option is that Kadu is a maverick politician who once called BJP MP Hema Malini a bumper drinker and even threatened to enter Union Minister Rao Sahab Danve's house and threatened to beat him up. So this is about third option. I mean, Eknath Shinde and the BJP would naturally think twice about planning their future collaboration with Kadu at the center in this entire negotiation in his capacity as the BJP chief. So you look at all these options and you know why the Shinde camp is playing a waiting game, even though the BJP may like to go for the kill now. As for the other question, why is Shinde not approaching the election commission to claim the Shiv Sena symbol? Well, for that to happen, even with a sympathetic commission, Shinde needs to have a majority of the Sena MLAs, MPs, corporators and party office bearers on his side. That's a big ask, given that Shinde and his supporters are not ready to even return to Maharashtra today. I mean, they are fearing backlash from Shiv Senics and likely defections from their camp back into Uddhav Thackeray's. Besides, you know, when you are claiming a party symbol you have to show that you have the support of a majority of MPs, MLAs, office bearers of the party, you know, corporators, which Shinde does not seem to have at this stage. You know, only a couple of the 19 Sena MLAs, including Shinde's son Shrikant and Bhavna Gawli, only they have actually publicly shown some kind of reservation with Uddhav Thackeray's leadership. Others have remained quiet. As for office bearers of the Shiv Sena, Uddhav enjoys loyalty of most of them so far. As it is, Shinde can't get the party symbol even if he goes to the election commission. That explains why he is not going there. Now, I must clarify here that Shinde's dilemma does not necessarily boast the prospects of the Uddhav government. Having petitioned to the Assembly Deputy Speaker for disqualification of 16 rebel MLAs, the MVA leadership hopes for the other 2 dozen MLAs in Shinde's camp to kind of break down and bolt out of the stable in Guwahati. Unlike the Congress defectors in Karnataka and Madhya Pradesh earlier, who got re-elected to claim their rewards later, Sena rebels face difficult prospects if they go to elections. If they have to face by-polls. If the 3 MVA partners decide to stay together, which to me, which seems unlikely, but if they decide to stay together and Shiv Senics remain unforgiving to rebels, they won't want to get disqualified and face by-polls. That's a big dilemma. And that is probably Uddhav Thackeray's only hope. His hope is that, he's hoping to bring his disgruntled flock back. In fact, the rebels got relief from the Supreme Court on Monday, with the court putting disqualification proceedings against them in abeyance till the 11th of July. Having said that, Uddhav must also not underestimate Fadnavis. If you recall, last Monday, if the rebels could so easily fly out and drive to Surat after voting for the party candidates in Mumbai in MLC polls, the BJP strategist and Fadnavis must have worked out legal and constitutional nitty-gritty too. Let me talk about another aspect of this political drama. There may be a difference in priorities of the BJP and the rebel Sena camp, especially Shinde. Howsoever much Fadnavis might want to form the government, his first priority would be to bring the Uddhav government down and possibly get the president's rule imposed. That is when the deputy speaker, the election commission and the courts come into play. There will be then enough time for Fadnavis to draw the contours of the next government. Once the MVA government falls, the Congress NCP Sena coalition is as good as over. It will come unstuck. You know how much Rahul Gandhi resented this alliance, even though his party MLAs owed little to him in their elections. He was hardly there. He just addressed 2-3 meetings in Maharashtra in the run-up to the elections. They don't owe anything to him. And many MLAs, especially of the Congress, would be willing to switch their loyalties even at the risk of getting disqualified and facing by-polls. That's the situation in the Congress today. So cobbling up a robust majority in the assembly to provide a stable government wouldn't be an issue for the BJP then. I mean, in the worst scenario, there would be snap polls. The BJP wouldn't mind even that. A splintered Sena, a divided opposition, and a discredited CM. I mean, the BJP couldn't ask for more. Incidentally, this is what Uddhav Thackeray would also want, unless he can perform a miracle by bringing back the entire lot of rebels with or without Eknath Shinde. I mean, Thackeray's no miracles don't happen just like that. The Sena chief would know that even in the unlikely scenario of half or more of the rebel MLAs returning to the party fold for the time being, the MVA government's days will be numbered. Even non-Sena MLAs in the MVA are edgy, as was evident in the last MLC election when as many as 7 Congress MLAs did not follow the party's instructions. So what Uddhav Thackeray is doing now is to try to consolidate his hold over the Shiv Sena while delaying the inevitable to his government. If he is able to isolate the rebels and avert a vertical split in the Sena, he can always hope to, live to fight another day and find some ally or the other in future. As it is, he looks resigned to losing. His shift from Varsha, the CM's residence, to Matoshri, his private residence, and in a show of, what you may say, sacrificing power, was meant to be an emotional outreach to the Sainiks. But in the process, he came out as a reluctant CM that Maharashtra probably does not deserve. He doesn't even seem to bother much about defending his governance record. I mean, when the CM asks why his party colleague Shinde should ask questions about his son, Aditya, when his own son is a member of parliament, I mean, it's clear he's not looking to defend his administrative acumen and record. He's fighting for his father's legacy. Read between the lines when Thackeray and his confidants speak in public nowadays. More than saving the government, they are working to regain their grip on the party and deny rebels their seats in an alternative government. Rebel leader Eknath Shinde's objective is, I think, slightly different from the BJP's. Both want to bring the MVA government down, but their orders of priority are a bit different. Dislodging Thackeray from power is a means for Shinde to marginalize them and gain control of the Shiv Sena. But he may think that he will be a loser if the government falls, but Uddhav Thackeray retains control of the party. I mean, an imploding Shiv Sena suits the BJP, but it can't have an independent ally like Shinde, who along with other rebel MLAs wants to fight for the rights of the Maharashtrians, the nativist ideology Bal Thackeray began with, and which the rebels reiterated in their resolution passed last week when they spoke about, quote unquote, fighting for the rights of local Marathi people. Rebels seem to forget, the Maharashtra of the 1960s when Bal Thackeray founded the Shiv Sena is not the same as Maharashtra of 2022. The BJP that had to bear with those nativist Sainiks in the 1980s and 90s is not the same today. I mean, today it's the most dominant pan-India party that can't afford to entertain nativist politics in any state. Shinde is an asset to the BJP when it comes to dislodging Uddhav Thackeray government. That done, Shinde becomes a liability for the BJP if he or his supporters and Sena rebels, if they are seeking to take Maharashtra back to Bal Thackeray's era. So, the priorities, the objectives, I mean, there are differences there. And that's what I have tried to explain why things are getting delayed. While it looks like, the Shinde camp has enough number of MLAs, bring down the government, but there are more complex issues. And that's what I have tried to explain in this episode of Politically Correct. Thanks for watching.